So guys, I've decided to do a top-down guide for Nioh because I love this genre with Nioh 2, and Nioh 1 is sort of played differently than the second game. I recently played the PC Complete Edition version of the game just to replay it, and some mechanics work differently compared to Nioh 2. What came out last year, what is still like the Nioh game you want to play right now, because the first Nioh is like 4 years old or something. But this is why I wanted to share with you guys how Nioh is played with this ultimate guide for all the mechanics, because if you do play Nioh 2 and want to try out the first game or just want to play the first Nioh, then you know how the game is played. So if that sounds interesting, let's get into it. How this guide is set up is that I will go through the mechanics of the game, explain them, show how they work in the game, script it, and then my own rules on how to effectively use the mechanics for beating the game off script. This is gonna be a very long video, I would say. You can make 4 other videos about this, but because the game is like 4 years old, I just want to do one video of everything, just to make a video about the game, because I love it so much. We first go about the leveling system and how it affects the gameplay with your weapons, armor, and building choices in the game. You got 8 stats in total. These are body, heart, stamina, strength, skill, dexterity, magic, and spirit. So body affects your maximum life the most. What is your health bar for every stat? By the way, you can get a little bit of health, but body will give you more. It also increases your resistance to poison and paralysis. It is the main damage scaling for the spear, and this stat is needed to benefit from the passive bonuses from medium armor and light armor, and it will also give you a skill point if you level this stat up. Heart affects your maximum ki, what is referring to the stamina bar in the game, and increases the ki pulse, what is the mechanic that you can regain your used stamina with a timed ki pulse after attacking to keep on fighting. The more points in ki pulse, the more ki you can gain back. It is also the main damage scaling for swords and bows, and it also gives a samurai skill point if you level it up. Stamina affects your maximum life more than other stats, but still body will give you more health. It also affects your equipment load with wearing armor. This eventually dictates how your movement will be affected with your agility. More on that later when we talk about the armor. It is the main damage scaling for the hand cannon, what is a ranged weapon. It will be needed to benefit from the passive bonuses from heavy armor, and it also will give you a samurai skill point if you level it up. Strength will slightly increase your equipment load, improves your ki pulse, and it is the main damage scaling for axes, hammers, and the yodashi. It is needed to benefit from the passive bonuses from heavy and medium armor, and it also gives you a samurai skill point. Skill will improve your ki pulse. It is the main damage scaling for dual swords, rifles, and tonfas. It is needed to benefit from the passive bonuses from light armor. It will slightly improve the power of ninjutsu, what means that it increases the damage and effectiveness of the items you use from the ninjutsu skills, but more on that later. It will also give you a samurai skill point if you level it up. Dexterity is the main stat for increasing your ninjutsu power and capacity. Capacity is how many skills you can have active to use. It is the main damage scaling for bows and kusurigamas. It also gives you ninjutsu skill points if you level it up. Magic is the main stat for increasing your Onmyo magic power and capacity. It increases your resistance against yokai realms. They debuff your stamina when you're in them. To be more specific, they are the pools yokai enemies drop below them. The stat also will give you Onmyo magic skill points if you level it up. The final stat is Spirit, what is needed to benefit from passive bonuses the Guardian Spirit gives you. More on Guardian Spirits later, where I go more specific on what they do and I can explain the whole thing more clearly. The stat slightly increases your Onmyo magic power and resistance to the yokai realm. It also increases the rate from the Amrita gauge, what is the circle you need to fill for using the 11 weapon ability. The circle is the thing what represents your guardian spirit next to your health bar. That's the thing. So those were all the stats summed up. To level up in Nioh, you need Amrita. This is the XP currency in the game. You will gain it by doing literally almost anything in the game, like picking up items, interacting with shrines, attacking enemies, defeating enemies, completing missions, and it's just much easier to say almost everything. Every time you level up, you will need more Amrita to level up again. That's probably something you already should know when you play games like this, but whatever. Up next is the stuff what is affected by leveling up stats. So armor, weapons, battle stats, guardian spirits. So for the armor, you have 3 types of armor. This is light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor. So the goal from these armor types are that from light armor, you're very quick, but you're very vulnerable. So you have to focus on avoiding attacks. For heavy armor, you are rather slow, but very strong. That can tank up hits better. And medium armor, it is just between these 2 armor types. So you're still somewhat fast to avoid attacks, but you're still able to tank up some hits. The choice of your armor depends on your playstyle, and your playstyle is your own preference, so I don't really have anything to say about that. And the stats you will be leveling up what unlocks the bonuses from the armor of your choice. The equipment weight will be at play here because it affects your agility and toughness. You got 3 states of agility and toughness. The high state of agility is that you are much faster in movement. This means your actions will cost less ki to execute, so attacking and dodging. You will be able to move around much faster and further with the dodging and also do more attacks and combos. This agility state will be obtained when you are below the 30% equipment weight. Wearing light armor will mostly let you achieve this, or you have to put a lot of points in stamina or strength to achieve it with other armor types, but because you wear light armor to get in a high state of agility, you will be in a low state of toughness. This means you will be more easily staggered when getting hit, and blocking attacks will drain a lot of ki, so it is easier to get your ki depleted, so this leaves you open to get one-shotted, what is not a good thing. This can be very annoying because when you get hit, you can be stagger chained to your death, so for fights you have to not get hit at all sometimes. What can be pretty hard for a lot of people, especially for beginners. So I recommend not going for the light armor choice when you are starting out. The mid agility state is obtained between the 30% and the 70% equipment weight. What is mostly obtained with medium armor. Here you will get a balanced state of agility. Your actions don't use that much ki and your movement is not as fast, and your dodge distance is a little bit less. When you wear medium armor, your toughness will be around the middle state, so here you can take some more hits before getting staggered. So it is manageable. When you get hit once, you can quickly back off to heal or attack again, and also block some attacks before getting your ki depleted when blocking. If you are above the 70% equipment weight, you will get in the low agility state. Here you're very slow and your actions will cost a lot of ki to execute, and your dodge distance is really small. This is mostly obtained when wearing heavy armor, but heavy armor will let you get in the high state of toughness. Here you can take hits without even getting staggered. This is very helpful if you are going for weapons like axes and idashis, because then you won't get staggered when you are winding up your attacks. It also lets you block attacks more often because it won't drain that much ki when blocking attacks. There's also over 100%, but don't do that. Just don't. Light armor also gives you the less defense. This will be more when you wear medium armor and even more when you are wearing heavy armor. What actually explains for itself. So to sum it all up, go for light armor if you want to be quick to avoid attacks and go for longer combos, but the downside is you die much faster and when you get hit and blocking isn't that attractive. Go for medium armor if you want a balanced choice, and go for heavy armor if you want to be able to take more hits and block more attacks. But in the downside, you aren't that quick to avoid them and do smaller combos. So now we're going to talk about weapons. There are 7 weapon types in the game. They're all good in their own way, but I only say that the spear is the worst one. So I would recommend not going for the spear in this game. But 2 stats you need to keep in mind when you're going for weapons. What kind of makes them different, and those are parry and break. Parry means that the amount of ki is lost when you are blocking, and break is the amount of ki damage you will do against enemies with the weapon. So keep an eye out for these stats. I would say to have at least a weapon what is really good at breaking enemies' ki bar. That's especially good against bosses, or at least human bosses. And a weapon what is kind of balanced in the two, because the parry stat is also affected by your toughness stat of your armor, what will kind of hinder the parry stats from the weapon and vice versa. The weapons that have a higher break are axes, hammers, and odashi, so having them makes it easier to beat human enemies, like I said before, because you can deplete their ki bar much faster. And the rest of the weapons, they actually kind of have identical stats between the break and parry stats, so it doesn't really matter. For the attack multiplier of the weapons scaling, each weapon has a stat where they will scale the most with and to other ones, so it is beneficial if you level up all the stats for a weapon it scales with to maximize the damage scaling to deal more damage with it. With your weapon choices, I would pick 2 weapons that scale with somewhat similar stats, because then both of your weapons will deal around the same damage, so one doesn't fall off behind the other. Same goes for the 3 ranged weapons in the game. You want to equip the ranged weapon that will benefit the most from the stats that you're leveling up, because then it will get more damage. It also goes for armor, because you want to get those passive bonuses and you need some certain stats leveled up to gain those passive bonuses for armor. So now I will talk about the battle stats or elemental effects in the game. There are 5 elemental effects in the game. This is fire. This will do damage over time. Water, what reduces physical defense and stacks up elemental buildup. Lightning will slow movement and attack speed with a chance to stun the enemy. Wind reduces the break resistance, lowers parry, and lowers their physical attack. Earth will increase the ki cost of actions, and they will take more ki damage. There are also status effects. These are poison, what will greatly do damage over time. Paralysis, what will prevent the actions until the effect wears off or you get hit. Stench will increase the ki damage on the target, what is effective, and stun them if they're trying to heal. It is really handy to know these things because the game doesn't even tell you what they do. The effects can be done to enemies, but can also be done to you. There's also a hidden status effect, what is called Confusion. This will proc if the target has 2 elemental effects on them. When a yokai is effective by Confusion, their ki bar is drained and they will stagger with every hit and can't regain their ki back until the Confusion effect is over. They also take more damage. This is extremely good for taking down yokai bosses. If humans are affected by this, including yourself, it will let you move much slower, and regaining your ki is much slower and you will take more damage. So now I'm gonna go a little bit about the Guardian Spirit. The Guardian Spirit works as extra passive bonuses and also for using the Live-in Weapon ability. In the game, you will get a lot of different Guardian Spirits with unique passive bonuses that can be obtained by leveling up the Spirit stat. The Living Weapon will let you infuse your Guardian Spirit with a weapon you hold for a limited time. This will let you do a lot of damage and are able to take free damage, but this will reduce the time of the Living Weapon. You can also summon your Guardian Spirit to do a unique attack to attack enemies. This attack will apply the elemental effect of the Guardian Spirit. Each spirit will have different strength. The attack multiplier for how much more damage you will do with a living weapon. Might will rate at which the living weapon gauge decreases if you are hit while using the living weapon. Action will rate at which the living weapon gauge is reduced when you consume ki while using the living weapon. The higher it is, the more you can use it. Recovery will rate at which the living weapon gauge recovers when you absorb Amrita while using a living weapon. Tenacity is the effectiveness of the living weapon that is active when your life is under a certain level. Amrita gauge rate will rate at which you gain Amrita. The higher it is, the quicker the gauge fills. When the Amrita gauge hits maximum, you can evoke a living weapon. That's the circle next to your health bar, by the way. These stats won't be that important though. Some Guardian Spirit bonuses don't add much help to you or don't apply with your build. And some Guardian Spirit attacks are just bad. There are Guardian Spirits, however, what are extremely game changers, but I will show you which ones those are and why. But I will talk about them in the combat because that is where they shine the most. So guys, this is me off script in the game, and I just want to show you guys how I have built my character, or William, in this game. So I do have beaten the game, so I'm much further ahead, I guess, if you're starting out with the game. So let's go to stats. I got 40 in body. That's because... Oh, hold on. Got 40 in body, 40 in heart, 30 in stamina. Strength is almost 80, so 79. skill is 35. So the reason for this is because I'm using dual swords. Dual swords, they scale with heart, strength, and skill. So having those stats up will increase the scaling, and I also use the Udashi, and this one scales with heart, stamina, and strength. And the main reason why I got strength the most is because both weapons scale with strength pretty good. So it gives me eventually the most damage scaling. So that's why I put more points in strength than other ones. And just for balancing other stats. That I still got some good amount of equipment weight and key and health. Did I say health? I have no idea. So as for range weapons, I use the cannon and the bow because they scale with these stats what I use the most, except for well, I do have points in skill, so that's pretty good, except for dexterity. But if you use the rifle, it does scale with skill and also dexterity. But I have more points in heart, stamina, so that's the main scaling of these range weapons. So it still scales more with the rifle then, because the main scaling stat with the rifle is skill, and I don't really have much points in skill. So for armor, I have the medium armor on, and for this you need body and strength. So I don't really need high body and strength. It's like only 9 and 9 depending on the armor you wear, because I got some armor pieces that requires me to get 14 body and 14 strength. And also the charms aren't really affected by your stats, so that doesn't matter at all. So let's check here. So I will go to the shrine, to the level up screen, so I can talk a little bit more about my build. So I don't really have any points in spirit because I just don't care about the passive bonuses. The passive bonuses are fine, but you don't really need them, in my opinion. I don't use ninjutsu here, and I also don't use magic here. What I do use though is a couple of techniques or skills from these trees, ninjutsu and Onmyo magic, because they're really good. But I will go deeper into them in the combat because I use them really just for the combat. So this was basically telling me, or not me, telling you how I have built in my playthrough of the game. I do play it differently first, but I changed it back to this build because I used this one also in Nioh 2, and it's pretty good actually. And I just like the dual swords and Udashi. It's just a really cool moveset. But moving on to the scripted section. So I actually forgot to talk about guardian spirits a bit. So to sum it up very quickly, you get these summoning spirits, guardian spirits in the game by completing missions, main missions, side missions, and these will have different passive bonuses, as you can see, but you will be needing spirits to benefit from these bonuses, and I don't really care much about the passive bonuses. And for the guardian spirits, you can see that below these passive bonuses, the other stats, what elemental it gives, the attack enhancements, the usable time, might, action recovery, and tenacity, and umbrella gauge rate. So I don't really look at these things because I use 4 spirits in the game. Really, I don't use the other ones. I use this one, the Parrot Raiken. This one. This is DLC exclusive. This guy with the pipe is really good, but you will need to beat a very annoying boss in the DLC, so it's kind of irrelevant if you're starting out, but I would say this is one of the best guardian spirits to use. What I have here, but that's because their guardian spirit ability, unique attack, is really useful for taking down bosses, and that's why I use them. So now we're actually going to the scripted version now. We're now going to talk about skills. So like I said before, you will get skill points from leveling up stats. These can be used to upgrade mechanics and unlock new abilities for your weapons, and also use ninjutsu items and magic spells, and some other passive stuff what is useful. So there are some general skills you can level up. These are shared between all the weapons, but they have to do with making the key pulls better, what is probably something you want to level up anytime. For the weapon skills, you can unlock new abilities for the weapons you use. So for example, you can make better combos with the weapon, longer combos, or you can parry now with the weapon, or use an attack that will stagger the enemies more and deplete their ki much faster. The choice of these abilities depends on your playstyle and what weapons you like to use. I do say though, some abilities are complete useless and some are just way overpowered to abuse. But well, that's just a good thing, really, because the game is pretty hard. So abuse them whenever. So for the ninjutsu skills are like more item based. I do say they're pretty good at fighting regular enemies during the missions. But for bosses, I would say they're pretty useless because they just don't do that much damage, even if you go ham on upgrading dexterity. What is not a good idea after all. You will need other stats as well. There's one skill though that you have to upgrade from this tree, and that is the backstab. Just get it first, it's really good. And I would say the buffs in this skill are pretty useful as well. Onmyo magic skills are magic spells you can unlock. You have the choice between damage, buffs, and debuffs. There's also passive bonuses which can be very useful. There's also a good thing about magic is that if you use elemental spells on the target, it is easier to get enemies confused. And if enemies are confused, they're really easy to beat. So this is really something you should abuse actually. How I recommend upgrading is that you first get the general skills for the key pull system, because those will be shared around all the weapons, and for your weapon skills, only unlock the ones for your main two weapons you use. If you do decide to switch a weapon, be sure to reset your skills as well, so you can use all skill points for the main two weapons you use, because having skills leveled up in other weapons you don't use is just wasted skill points. And you can also just go for a ninjutsu build or a magic build if that is your choice. And if you aren't going ham on those builds from ninjutsu or magic, just get some regular good skills from those skill trees, because you're going to get skills for them anyway, so you pretty much want to use them as well. To upgrade higher end skills, you will need to do side missions in the dojo to unlock them, so you can put skill points in them. This includes samurai training missions to unlock the skills for the weapons. These missions are unlocked by using your weapons to attack enemies, and this will increase the proficiency for the weapons in total. And if you got a high enough proficiency, you can play the mission to unlock the skills. To unlock the ninjutsu missions, you will need to level up dexterity stat, which is pretty easy to do. And for Onmyo missions, you will need to level up the magic stat. There's also going to be 2 mastery skills for each of the weapons, including ninjutsu and Onmyo magic. Here, you will need to do dojo missions to face off a 1v1 with a guy who uses the same weapon or ninjutsu or Onmyo magic. If you win this fight, you can unlock and set one of the 2 mastery skills, what I should recommend using. So now I will show you about skills. So you can learn skills in this tab right here. And you want to learn skills for the weapons you're using, obviously. So there are going to be general stats here. This is about the key pulse. You can play the movie here and see what it does. Oops. Let's go back and see what it does. And you do have to complete. At the right side, you can see you need to clear the mission, The Way of the Warrior Adapt. These missions become available in the dojo, and you have to complete a certain main missions to get them unlocked in the dojo. So you just have to play the story, and then you can do missions in the dojo. And if you do get missions in the dojo, do them before you continue doing something else, because if you do complete them, you can unlock more skills, and skills are very good. So these are like the general skills. There's also here down below some general skills, what makes you key pulls when you're dodging in high stance, and also increase. Wait a second. Yeah, if you do activate your what the how is this written? It's so weird, dude. Activates when you recover full ki from. Oh, this is just the perfect ki pulls, and it will raise your damage caused by your next attack in high stance, and it also has the mid stance features and the low stance features. So I actually unlocked all the skills here, and I got some 3 skills left. If you don't have skills, they are summed up right like this, and if you do click on them, this is how you unlock skills. Pretty simple, actually. So I use dual swords. I got all skills unlocked here for it, and you can customize them here in your high stance, because this is cherry blossom, so this means that you will do a special or a, how do you say that, a special attack move after your combo. So you basically increase your combo by doing this. You can also set skills what can be activated from blocking stance, like this. This is also a skill what I have set on blocking. This is one I have also set in the mid stance. Some skills are only prior to high stance and mid stance, like these ones, and they can also parry with this attack. And also in low stance, I got this attack, what I can charge up. And if I do hit someone, I will do like a whirlwind attack. And also a skill that I hold my heavy attack button, and it will charge up and it will do this. This is what I mean by skills, that you can actually do more attacks than just the regular combos. And that is why I want to unlock them. That's like, say it in short. There's also ninjutsu skills. So ninjutsu skills are more item based, and I don't really use them. I do say though that in general, the paralysis round trap is very useful against almost every enemy in the game, because it's just useful to let them get paralyzed, so you can maybe focus on other enemies first, or just position yourself very well to one-shot the enemy. So that's pretty good. And I also use these ones. This will lower the enemy's movement, what is pretty good if you get overwhelmed with enemies. It is also good to position yourself better when you're fighting a boss or something. And you want to get this one. This is the backstab. You obviously want to get that one because it's just in general very useful. And some passive bonuses I got here that I could carry more elixirs. And I also got the power pills from ninjutsu to increase my damage a little bit. And I also used the skills to gain more ninjutsu capacity, because then I don't have to use any stats in dexterity to get more capacity. Same goes for Onmyo magic. Here I got some debuff spells here, and also increases the Onmyo magic capacity. So this is one of the skills I say you must have. this will let you prepare 3 Guardian Spirit Talismans. This will let you do a Guardian Spirit unique attack just in the fly. Like that. And this is really good to get the enemy confused so their stamina bar is depleted, especially for yokai enemies. Or this is specific for yokai enemies, that their ki bar is depleted and then you can wail on them until the effect is over. That's pretty good, but I will show that in the combat section. There's also the mastery art, what is unlocked in the dojo as well, but will be able what you are able to get only like later in the main story. But you have to do dojo missions then and just face off a guy 1v1. And if you do beat the guy, you are able to set one of the mastery skills. There are 2 mastery skills for each of the skill trees for every weapon as well, but you are only able to set 1. So I guess you should just use 1 and don't unlock the other, because then you can use skill points for something else. There's also down below that you can use your skill points to increase your melee weapon attack, what I have a lot of invested here, 13. And this will cost a lot of skill points, but if you have your main weapon skills already full, like you have all the skills learned, then you should put skills in these ones if you're actually using them. I would recommend melee because you're using them the most. Range weapons, it's not that worth it, and barehanded, I don't use that, so whatever. Maybe there's something else to view. Let me show you the Dashi skill. So this is in high stance. Different skills. What makes the combos more effective if you have this on, but you probably know what I mean by this right now. But all skills, you can play the video and then you know what they do, and you have to like practice in the game what you prefer best. It's your own preference, really, to be honest. But those are the skills like off scripted explained, so let's get back to the scripted sections. So see you there. So now we are getting into how the world of Nioh looks like. By this I mean is how the game is set up around its mechanics. How the progression works in Nioh is that you will be going through different regions around the map, where in each region there are going to be main missions to progress the story and side missions to challenge you with unique rewards, like getting other Guardian Spirit. In the missions you will face a handcrafted level where you will need to go from the starting point through the whole level, facing enemies and obstacles, to the end point where there will mostly be a boss fight or some other strong enemy, or you have to find a special item depending on the mission. In missions you can find Kodamas hidden around levels. If you can find them in missions, they can give you a passive bonus, like increasing your Amrita gain, increasing the drop rate of elixirs. These heal you, by the way, what you're gonna need, trust me. They also can increase the drop rate of weapons, armor, and crafting materials. I recommend putting this on, getting more Amrita for quick level up in the early game. Missions will have a recommended level cap on them, so you need to be around the mission's level cap with your level, and also with up-to-date weapons and armor around that level to, let's say, have a chance of beating the level, because, you know, the game is still hard. But let's be real here, in Nioh, some missions have a huge level cap between them, so it feels like you're strong in the current mission you're doing, and then you really suck in the next one because you haven't the right level for it. But that is fine, because you can do side missions to get more content in from the game and level up, what is all good. There is one thing with side missions though in Nioh, you will be doing the same level layout a lot, but then just with another objective, so it can be a little boring to do them. There's also Twilight missions. Each day you can do 2 random Twilight missions in rotation. These are buffed up missions where you will face more challenging enemies in that mission. These missions can be very useful for leveling up much faster during the story, so I would recommend, if you can do them and have the right amount of level to do them, that you do them, because you can get better rewards from them and you can also level up from them. So now I will talk about the loot system in Nioh, and it goes as followed. The equipment you find will follow a rarity structure from uncommon, common, rare to exotic. You know, think about Diablo. And for the end gear, you also can get divine and even further ethereal, what is like hell difficulty when you can get those items. What is not fun, actually. Or depending on your skill, obviously. And this goes for all equipment, weapons, armor, and charms. All equipments will have passive bonuses on them, and there are a lot of them, what I won't explain, because you can simply hit the info button in the menu and hover over the bonus to see what it does. And you can do this with pretty much everything in the menu. So if you don't know what something is, you can just use the info button. For rarer equipment, you will gain a extra passive bonuses on the equipment, so this means that you always want to use the highest rarity equipment you got, at least if it is the highest level, because if you have rare equipment what is way higher than a exotic equipment, you're better off using the rare equipment. You can also gain extra passive bonuses on equipment if it is a part of a set. Here you will need to equip multiple pieces of equipment that are from the same set to gain extra bonuses. So for the items you find in the game can be a game changer if you use them right. They can give you a tactical advantage over enemies you face. They can be used to buff yourself up or medicate a status effect or enhance your attack with elemental damage. Use items to deal damage. To say in short, because there is a lot of items, including Ninjustu and Onmyo magic, they can add a lot to your playstyle. So I'm going to talk about the shrines. The shrines you find in the game serve as checkpoints and missions, and when you are praying at them in the missions, you will reset the whole area, making the enemies respawn, and you can use them to level up your stats. With the Amrita you have, offer your items to gain extra Amrita from them. This is very useful early on in the game to dump your unwanted and useless items to quickly level up in the game. You can change your Guardian Spirit, and also later you can enhance it, but that is unlocked after the main storyline. You can also set your Kodama Blessing here, so you can switch between gaining more Amrita, increasing the drop rate of weapons, armor, elixirs, and materials. You can ready your Ninjustu and Onmyo magic skills here, so you can use them when you're controlling the character. When you died, you can go to the shrine and call back your Guardian Spirit from the grave where you died, but this will forfeit the Amrita you had before you died. So if you go to the place where you actually died last time, you can interact with your grave. This will let you retrieve your lost Amrita and your Guardian Spirit. And as final, you can offer cups to summon other players in missions for co-op to help you out, and you can also pick up your DLC items here if you got any. So when you are in the region map, you can go to the Blacksmith, where you can buy stuff with gold, what is the money currency in the game, and sell items to get gold. You can also forge items. This can be done with material you find during missions and assembling your unwanted equipment to get materials. If you forge items, you will get an RNG factor of what rarity the item will turn out to be. You can increase the RNG by adding more rarer material, and eventually you can put in divine fragments to make divine equipment, but that is just later on in the game after this main storyline. In the game, you will find smithing text from equipment that can be given to the blacksmith to forge new items. These can be found as mission rewards and also as rare drops from enemies. The soul matching will let you infuse equipment together to raise the level of the one equipment you are soul matching. This is very useful if you are having an item with great passive bonuses, but you don't want to trash it away. You can infuse it with a higher level weapon, but be warned, this will cost a lot of money. What will mostly not be worth it, But soul matching is very useful later on when you get divine equipment, because you need to infuse divine equipment with greater plus values to make them more powerful. Some passive bonuses on equipment can be transformed to other equipment via soul matching, but mostly these passive bonuses aren't really that good, so it doesn't matter. You can also change the passive bonuses on equipment with reforging by using spirit iron chunks as material, and eventually you can use divine fragments to get even better passive bonuses. But I recommend just using that instead of spirit iron chunk. You're just wasting your money, I guess. There are also emerald stones that will give a more passive bonus related to the Teahouse, but that will be explained later. Refashion will let you change how the equipment will look by that of another. So if your equipment looks like trash, but that has godlike bonuses, don't worry, you can make it look very nice. And as final, you can change your hairstyle. So, show your sexy style, baby. But there are only like 4 choices to choose from, so it's not really that big. Compared to Nioh 2 anyway. When you spend money at the Blacksmith though, you will gain patronage points, and you can use them to get discount from their services, and also gain extra quick slots to use items during combat, what I recommend you pick up first. So there are some side minor passive bonuses what you can get in a game. This is by completing challenges in the background. This will be like defeating enemies with a type of weapon or beating bosses without getting hit. Good luck on that. These bonuses are minor, but eventually when you complete a lot of challenges, you can invest a lot of points in these bonuses. These are picked up from the list in the menu, where you can also go to your equipment, upgrade skills. And every time you have selected one skill, it will vanish and another bonus will pop up where you can invest another skill point in. And there are 2 sections you can get the passive bonuses from. There is multiplayer in Nioh where you can summon other players during missions, what I said before at the shrine. You can also join other players by becoming a visitor in missions. And there's also a battle PvP mode, but Nioh is like 4 years old and the player base is pretty much dead, or at least I can connect with anyone. And I'm playing the PC Complete Edition version, so I guess not many people have that version or play it, I guess. I don't know. But if you have a friend, you guys can play the game together via a code system to find each other in the matchmaking, so it's really easy to play this game with a friend. So now I will talk about the Teahouse, what I said before with the Emerald Stone at the Blacksmith. The Teahouse is a place where the glory points and the clans come into play. This becomes available after the Spider Nest Castle main mission. In the Teahouse you can buy items with glory points, buy characters from the story so you can transform into them, buy random weapons on armor rolls. I don't recommend this, by the way, they're pretty useless. And you can buy gestures. In the Teahouse, you can join a clan to get passive bonuses and participate in clan wars, where red clans fight against white clans and fight for who can get the most glory in a week window. And after the week is done, you gain extra glory rewards. And if your clan is on the winning side, you get more glory points with a discount for buying stuff in the Teahouse shop. If you do want to switch to another clan, you will get a penalty from the rewards from the clan wars, because otherwise you could just quickly switch to the winning clan, profit from the rewards. There is also a penalty that you have to wait to switch out your clan again, so choose your clan wisely. You can get glory points by defeating revenants from bloody graves. These are graves from real players in missions where they died, and you can fight them for a chance to get their gear, and also get glory points for defeating them. If they are on the opposite clan color, you will get more glory points. So if you are on a clan which has the red color and you defeat a revenant what is pledged to be a clan with the white color, you will get more glory points, and vice versa. You can also donate items to your clan to get glory points, and with the donations you can also get extra items. If you donate the requested items to the clan, You can check what items are requested on the right side when donating items. The requested items are marked with ribbons, and if you fill the blue bar to full with donating what is requested, you will get the actual item. So the combat mechanics are up next. What is the most interesting part of the whole guide, I guess? So I will explain how they work, and then I will show you in-game how I use the mechanics with my own rules and how to best use everything. So first we start off with the key pull system. It is very important to master this to keep the combat going, because every time you attack you will lose stamina, and with the key pull system you can gain your stamina back with a well-timed key pulse to keep on fighting with combos or position yourself better in fights. When you attack, you can see another white bar extending from the green bar, and when that bar hits the right side of the red bar, you can do a perfect key pulse with the stance button. If you miss the timing, your key will be lost. If you hit the stance button when the white bar is still moving, you will gain the amount of key back where the white bar was, but it doesn't count as a perfect key pulse. You can learn skills for upgrading the key pulse in the weapon skill trees. Those are the general skills what is shared between all the weapon skills. These skills are that when you dodge, you can perform a key pulse automatically, gaining extra damage buff for your current stance when you do a perfect key pulse. When switching stances and key pulse, you can gain more key back, and also do a unique attack when you're switching your weapon during key pulse. With a perfect timed key pulse, you can purify the yokai realms on the ground, which reduces your key regain while in them. A good tip is to simply attack one time and quickly do a perfect key pulse to get rid of the yokai realms. Leveling up skill and strength will increase your key pulse, which means that when you attack, you will be able to gain more key back with your key pulse. So up next is the weapon stances. The weapon stance mechanic makes the combat interesting. Each weapon has 3 stances: high stance, mid stance, and low stance. Attacks in high stance are stronger, will do more key damage, and won't be stopped when enemies block. So it is very useful to deplete the enemy key bar against human enemies that block all the time. The point of the name is that the attack comes from a high stance, coming from the higher part of your body. So if you keep this in mind, because this will let you hit enemies in their higher body part, so it is easier to hit the enemy's weak spot, especially for yokai enemies with the horns. Mid stance gives you a more general combat style and is overall good, but unlike high stance, the attacks in mid stance will deflect from blocking enemies, but it also depends on which weapon you are using. And for the name, attacks from mid stance come from the middle part of the body, so it will be aimed at the middle part of the enemy. In low stance, you will attack very quickly with less power, so they are harder to dodge but can easily be deflected with blocking. And for the name low stance, attacks will be coming out from your lower part of the body, so you will be aiming at the low part of the enemy. This is useful for smaller enemies on the ground because you can just wail on them in low stance and then they die. The unique thing about the weapon stances is that every weapon will get another moveset with each stance and can be used to better face different types of enemies and groups of enemies. Weapon combos can be upgraded with skills. These can upgrade the normal combos of the weapons with an extra move at the end and set a skill to do another attack than the normal combos. This makes stances also very important because you can set skills for each of the stance of your weapon, so you can do multiple different attacks what are more effective when facing different types of enemies. For the range weapons, Nioh has 3 range weapons: a bow, a rifle, and a hand cannon. You can only equip 2 at a time. The bow is much quicker to use but does less damage. It is good for hitting enemies in their weak spot to stagger them and take them down much quicker, but arrows will be blocked by helmets, but the helmet will knock off so you can shoot them again and hit in their head. The rifle is a bit slower than the bow, but it will deal more damage. The rifle is good to take out enemies at the start of a fight or deal a quick chunk of damage to an enemy you're going to face. The hand cannon is used if you just need someone 100% deaf or do a lot of damage just because they're so annoying to fight. And the tip is always hit enemies in the face or the weak spot for maximum deafness. So now let's talk about the enemies, and I will talk about this in different types. There are two of them, human and yokai. You can see the difference from which keybar they have. Humans have a white keybar or a green one, and yokai have a purple one. And let's just be real, yokai look like fucking demons, so it is pretty clear what is the difference. So from my perspective, there are three categories within these two types. The first category is enemies that will stagger instantly. So for humans, these are the enemies that have like weak armor on, what can be staggered until they die. And for yokai, these are the smaller demons, but also can be staggered until they die. The second category is enemies who don't stagger instantly. For humans, these are the guys who are wearing stronger armor or that are meant to be like a human mini boss, and special human enemies like revenants from the bloody graves. For yokai, these are the bigger guys that don't stagger until you deplete their keybar to 0. You will know when you face them because, you know, they're pretty annoying and you know. The last category is bosses for human and yokai. Human bosses are a pain. They block non-stop and keep on attacking, have fast key region, bullshit damage, and yeah, pretty damn hard to sum it up. For yokai bosses, they're huge but do insane one-shot damage, so the only way to kill them is to master the movement of combat and the boss's attack patterns to have a chance. Or you can use my tactic, but I will talk about that later. The living weapon mechanic is up next. For the combat, the living weapon mechanic will give you immunity to damage during the ability, and you can deal a ton of damage depending on which guardian spirit you have on you, because this is countered by the attack multiplier of the guardian spirit. The ability will last until the bar is empty, what will deplete slowly, but will deplete faster if you do get hit in the ability, so it is best to still dodge attacks and not tank them up, or else the ability is quickly over, and if you do get hit, when the bar hits 0, you will be stunned. So it is like if your key gets depleted and will take a lot of damage from the next attack, so it is better to avoid this. The ability needs to recharge with gaining Umbrella. You can also use Spirit Stones to let it recharge if you have to face a strong enemy like a boss fight, so it is ready to use also when you gain Umbrella while the living weapon is active. The duration is extended, so you can longer use it to take down multiple enemies. In the living weapon, you summon your guardian spirit to do a unique attack. This can be useful to stagger the enemy and also give them the status effect from the spirit and elemental, what is gonna be very good in the combat. So guys, this is me just playing a mission to show you how I use the combat system in the game. So I know there are gonna be 2 enemies here, so the thing is, what you can do is just fight them head on. You can also just shoot one in the face first, so he dies. And then you just have to only deal with another one. You can also just shoot him in the head right now, after that. So these are like enemies who stagger instantly when you hit them. Enemies do a lot of damage still, like, let me get hit here. Still does quite a lot of damage. But for these most enemies, you can just dodge one attack and just wail on them until they die. That's pretty much how I categorize these enemies. Okay, let's quickly find some other enemies. So I believe I go to the right, I can fight some yokai, I guess. Yeah. So yokai enemies. Super annoying. So this is gonna be a category 2 big guy who doesn't stagger until you have their keybar depleted. So yeah, these are spots in the game, by the way. This will spawn a 2 or a yokai enemy, and if you do beat this guy, if you do reset the area, he is gone. So this is what these areas mean. And if you walk up, the yokai will spawn and will also summon a yokai realm. So yeah, quickly get rid of that yokai realm. So what I do here is just wait for him to attack and then do my combos. So I dodge to the back of him because then you will deal extra damage because you are hitting him from behind. So both my weapons have elemental damage. Here you can see he now has 2 elemental equip. Now he's confused, so he will stagger a lot and will take a lot of damage. That's how I beat the yokai enemies in the game. So let's see. This is a small enemy. Let's just not kill him then. So this is also a small enemy yokai, and he's pretty bad, so you can just wail on him until he dies. Let's see, I can fall down here as well. So this is a knight or a skeleton knight. This is also one of the types that you can just hit them until they die. I do believe there is some big enemy here, not sure. But I think this was gonna be a boss, so let's quickly destroy these toxic shit things. Yes, a boss. Okay, let's get rid of these toxic things first. Okay, I'm poisoned right now, so I have to actually kind of get the antidote ready. So let's get rid of these small enemies first, because it's very annoying. The guy is just attacking, and I position myself backwards every time he goes for me, so I can take out the other enemies. But I was careless and got hit. So this is how I use the Guardian Spirit's attacks. So let's just let him attack, so I can do this attack again. Now he has the elemental shock now, and now he has the water damage, and now he's staggered. And what I can do now is do my heavy attack and spam it until he dies. That is what I mean by using my Guardian Spirit attack to beat down yokai boss is much easier. Because that guy is actually the first boss that you face in the game. Oh no, it's the second boss in the game. Okay, let's fight. There's also actually a human boss in this level, so this is a perfect example. And there's also another Raven enemy. So again here, this is gonna spawn big Mr. Guy. So some enemies also have a weak spot. You can also just shoot them in there if you stand still. Like I shot him in the eye and then he staggered for a while. Some yokai have other types of weak spots, like the regular yokai, who is... I don't know why this guy is confused with only one status effect, by the way. I don't know why. Anyway, some yokai have different weak spots. For example, the guys with the horn in their head. If you break the horn with a high stance, it's mostly the effective way to hit them with it. And then they fall on the ground. So here you can use your range weapon. It's kind of really cheesy to use range, but use it. I don't care. So the dash is really good for hitting multiple enemies like these. So let's see. So this is really good against yokai. This Guardian Spirit is very good against yokai enemies. But let's switch it up. This one is really good against human enemies. So now let's fight boss enemies. So I won't abuse this Guardian Spirit. Let's just fight him just regularly, because you know how it works. So he is human. As you can see. Well, he's not really that human because he's fucking flying around. But yeah, how do you explain how they work, dude? He has his moves, so you need to dodge them. And after he attacked, you have the opening. But human enemies will block, so you can deflect off of them, which is annoying. So with this guy, if he does fly around and when you hit him, he falls on the ground. So I'm using high stance now because if he does block, and some human enemies also have a Guardian Spirit attack like this. So I actually want him to block, but I beat him too hard, I guess. Okay, that was a grab attack. And if you do get grabbed, well, it does a ton of damage. You cannot do anything about it. Or just dodge, but if you miss dodge, you're just gonna take the damage. So he's blocking right now, and because I use high stance, I will just go through the blocking. I won't get deflected. That's how high stance is pretty good. So now I will use my Guardian Spirit if he stands still, actually. This Guardian Spirit is really good against human bosses because you can just keep spamming this and then he falls on the ground. What I recommend actually doing is not to spam it, just when he stands up, do your combo in the back. But with this guy, it doesn't work because he just teleports away. So this Guardian Spirit is pretty good for killing him. And I'm using the talismans, what I had from the Onmyo skills right here. That's this one. You can also use the other variation of it. Let's see where it is in the item slot. Do you even have them? Yes. Momentum Talisman. That's pretty much the same thing, as you can see. So you can also use those. But I use Onmyo Magic because if you rest at the shrine, you can just refresh them. So you don't have to buy them. So let's speak to him. Hopefully the combat system is a little bit explained here. You know, I could go deeper into it, but then the video will take, you know, an hour long and stuff, and that's not really what I want. And the mission is done right now. So up next is the end game stuff you can do in Nioh. I won't spoil anything, so don't worry. So when you beat in the main storyline of Nioh, you will enter the end game. Here you unlock new challenging missions, divine equipment, the DLC, New Game Plus feature, and the boss rush content, the Abyss. So first let's talk about the divine and ethereal equipment. The first thing you need to understand is how divine equipment works, because this will be your go-to equipment to get stronger in the end game. Divine equipment is dropped from missions, rewards, and beating enemies. Before you start a mission, you can increase the drop rate by using Okoku Cups for that mission, up to 10 most likely. But I recommend also to spare your cups when you're doing main missions in New Game Plus or in the Abyss as well, where you can farm a lot of more equipment because you will be facing more enemies there. So I recommend also for missions, use them in main missions or use them in Abyss. You can also forge divine equipments with divine fragments, what are dropped from randomly from enemies, mission rewards, and also by dismantling divine equipment. Divine equipment will have one more passive bonus than exotic, and you want to focus on having a fixed armor set, what you'd like to use, because you will need to upgrade it now with other divine equipment, what has a better plus value to make it stronger. You do this with soul matching at the Blacksmith. Here you will need to soul match the divine equipment with another divine equipment with the same or higher plus value. When your equipment has a high plus value already, it is hard to find any equipment dropped with a high plus value. For this, you can build up other divine equipment you don't use with low plus value and build them up with soul matching so they eventually get to your high equipment plus value, so you can infuse the one that you build it up into the one you're using. Doing this will cost a lot of equipment and money, but that's like the only really effective way to get high plus value very quickly. Divine armor will also now have the familiarity bonus, just like the weapons, so the more you use it, the more defense you will get from it, and it is maxed. The passive bonuses will also increase. I actually didn't talk about that weapons has familiarity, but it is basically if you use your equipment, you will get familiarity points and you will get more damage for weapons, and for armor you will get more defense. And if you do reach max familiarity, then the passive bonuses will also increase for some percentage. So talking about the new plus feature in Nioh, it works a little different than most games. In this game, you can just freely switch from the new difficulties in the region map. The first one is Way of the Samurai, what is your starting difficulty. After that, the Way of the Strong, Way of the Demon, Way of the Wise, and as final, Way of the Nioh. For each new difficulty, the game becomes harder, or at least that's the point of it. But you will find better equipment in those difficulties to actually beat the difficulty. You're also able to upgrade the Guardian Spirit after you finish the game, and with each new difficulty, the maximum level cap increases, so you can level them up again further. In Way of the Wise, you can get your ethereal equipment dropped. Those are even better than the Divine equipment, but they're still very rare. So now let's talk about the DLC. After you finish the game, you can also start doing the DLC content, what gives new locations, missions, enemies, equipment, and guardian spirits. The levels here are much higher and can be compared with the next difficulty setting from the main game, so the next New Game Plus. So leveling up divine equipment is a real must before you start the DLC, because you will have a hard time when you're starting without it. So you really need to get divine equipment first. So not only the DLC, you will also get new challenging missions in the main game, like dual boss fights and fighting off enemies one after another, or just a small boss rush missions. There's also another content for actual boss rush, and that is the Abyss. Here you will enter the yokai realm, and you will have two choices: face the crucible where the boss is, or face one of the 4 areas to find a Kodama to get rid of the negative effect when facing the boss in the crucible. Going to one of the 4 areas, you will enter a random mission area in the game where you need to navigate through to find the Kodama. The enemy scaling here is decided on which floor you are in the Abyss. So a little note here, the Abyss will have a total of 999 floors, so yeah, if you want content, you can do that if you want. The Abyss is also a good way to farm divine equipment, so I recommend, if you beat the main game, to go to the Abyss and face the 4 areas to get divine equipment with greater plus value to upgrade your current equipment. Because if you want to play the DLC head on after you finish the game, I recommend you first do the Abyss to get some divine equipment and then face the DLC, because it's much easier that way. You can also defile equipment in the Abyss to make them stronger, so I guess this increases the plus value on divine equipment. And you can also get Ethereum equipment, but I guess you need to be at a higher floor than 20 or 30 to even get those. The items you defile will be purified once you beat the boss in the Crucible and leave the Abyss. You can also go to the next floor where the same choices occur: go fight the boss or go to the 4 areas to get rid of the debuff. If you do go to the next floor, the items you defiled will become even stronger, up to 3 times max. If you do die in the Abyss, you will need to go to your grave, what is guarded by your guardian spirit, to get it back. And there is no other way. in the Abyss, by the way. You can call it back or use a Summoner Candle. You can't use those. But if you do die again without having your Guardian Spirit return to you, you will go back to the world map. You will lose your defiled equipment, but you will still keep the other equipment you found in the very areas, so don't worry. You can enter the Abyss again, and you are able to start from the floor you have last completed. The floors are capped, though, at your completion with the New Game Plus difficulty, so to go higher than 5, for example, you will need to complete the Way of the Strong first, and so on, because otherwise you can get a lot of over-leveled equipment to beat the New Game Plus difficulties, and I guess they don't want that. But guys, that was the guide for Nioh. So the point of this guide was that I really love to play this game, and I wanted to share how this game is played, especially if you play Nioh 2 without having played the first Nioh, or you want to try out a series that you know what to expect. And I recommend, if you like Souls-like games, this is one of the game series you should give a shot. But I'm wrapping things up here. If you do enjoyed the video and found it helpful, leave a like, comment if you got some questions, and subscribe for more gaming content. Guys, I thank you for watching, and until next time.